Okay, so in this video, we're going to work on being able to register and log a user in. So let's open up our main project, and we're going to create a new folder called Business Managers. And inside of this folder, we're going to create a new class, and we're going to call this class the Account Manager. Okay, and we're also going to, inside of the Business Managers folder, we're going to create a new folder called Interfaces, and we're going to add a new class, which is Interface, and call it Account Manager. And I'll name that to proper case. Then we will make sure that our account business manager inherits from the interface that we just created. Okay, so inside of this, there's going to be a few methods that we're going to need, and in these methods, we're going to need certain things like the user manager and role manager, or sign-in manager, stuff like that. So first thing we'll want to do is inject our user manager and go from there. So let's see. Okay, and let's create a public method for first thing we'll want to do is register, be able to register a user. So public, it'll be async task, and then bring in tasks, and we're going to end up returning something, but for now we'll just leave it as task and call it register user. And we're also going to take in a model. Let's just do that. And to get these models, let's go ahead and hop on over to our project. We'll create a new folder called models. Go ahead and add a model called register request model. And this register request model is going to take in a few items, one of which will be the email. Okay, we're also going to want password, firm password, and that's it. Right, perfect. So inside of this method, we're going to do, what was it, register request model. We can create our user in the database by doing now. We will call the user manager create async method. And we're going to store this in a identity result. And this is where we pass in the identity user, but we're also going to pass in the register request model dot password. Okay, so now is where we would do our return value, which we need to create a new model for. So let's go over to models and we'll add a new class, call it register response model. And this class is going to have two items. we can go ahead and just return. Oh, I have to change this task because we're returning the register response model now. And don't forget that in our configuration app services, I'm gonna need to add in this service. So I'm gonna create a new method called, actually no I won't, I'm just gonna go ahead and inside of this I'm gonna say collection.add scoped, and then we're passing in the interface of iAccount. And now we're set up for dependency injection. Let's hop on over to our controllers and we will create a new controller. Let's do API controller, empty, good. Call it account controller. And we'll notice that it comes with route and API controller attributes, which I'm going to go ahead and remove this API / just leave it at controller, and it inherits from controller base. Alright, so inside of this controller, maybe we want to grab the user by ID. So let's go ahead and create a new endpoint which will return action result of, let's create a new model. And we'll call it user model. And the reason why we're doing this is so that when we call this controller, we don't necessarily want to return everything that's inside of the identity user model, like, you know, the password hash, any other small things that just really won't matter to us. So we're going to return the user model, where we'll define exactly what we want. So maybe a public string ID, so the ID of the user should be fine, and then we'll do email. Okay, then we'll just set up a constructor so that it'll automatically populate this stuff for us, and we'll be passing in the identity user. So back over here, we can now, we'll return this user model, and let's just call it get user by ID. Pass in ID. We need to dress this thing with some attributes. So this is of course going to be a get endpoint. See, we'll route it. So we're going to route it to user and just ID. So now we'll just say var application user is equal count. Whoa. Okay, so we registered a user, did not set anything up to get the user. I forgot. Okay, so just say public async task. find by ID async. Find a. Okay, so we got that, and we pass in the ID. Okay, so now we can create our model, pass in that identity user that we had. Inside of our account controller, now we have that method. We can say get user by ID. So we can do a check. So if we can just do return not found. Otherwise, return new, or just return application user. Oh, did not await it. And first this needs sync ask. Heading. See, create a new method, and we'll want to create a a request and a response model. So login request model. Sorry, we're going to be returning a login response model, and just say login user. Then we'll take in the login request model. And let's go ahead and create those models real quick. User manager. Say find by name async. So username will equal the email. So login request model. Now that we have the user, first let's check, is the user null? If it's not null, then we also want to check the password. We want to validate on the password. So say await user manager check password async. So we take in user and request password. Okay. So if that was successful, then we'll go ahead and log the user in. So await. Oh, we'll need the sign in manager for this. So Let's see, private manager, which sure. Sign dot sign in async. So pass in user and true. Okay. First, let's grab user roles, wait, user manager dot get async, and then we'll say auth claims equal list and claim. And we're going to say new claim, and it will be JWT registered names dot JTI. Say GUID dot new GUID. Need to get a auth signing key, and remember in our configuration services we set up this JWT valid audience and valid issuer and JWT secret. So we need to store these things inside of our configuration because that's where we're getting it. So let's go on over to our app settings. I'm going to hop into development. Inside of this guy, there's actually a few things we need to add in here. The first of which will be our connection string. And again, inside of our service, we set up use SQL Server, and we're in the configuration, we're getting a connection string for default connection. So up here, add in connection strings. Okay, so, and then below this, now add in our JWT info. Remember we have valid audience, valid issuer, and secret. To get the valid audience and issuer, and I'm not 100% positive on this at the moment, and if it ends up being wrong, we will debug and figure it out later. But let's go ahead and run. Oh, let's see, do that. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, so we see that our port is whatever this is. So go ahead and run it. Find out what your port is and copy that. Okay. And then inside of our token, we are going to set that as well as throw it here. Okay. Then for the secret, just go up into tools. Let's create a new GUID. Okay. I just select that one. New GUID, copy it, and then I'm gonna paste it in there. And what happened here? I'm gonna get rid of that, this. That'll be my secret. You can just use whatever you got. Here, uncomment all of that. Okay, so now we can get our auth signing key, but actually one more thing that we need to do, we need to inject the configuration because we're gonna have to get it from that secret. Let's go ahead and do Alright, so now we can go ahead and get our auth signing key. Alright, so now we can actually create the JWT security token. So now we can just return new login response model token equals new JWT security token handler write token. Okay, and then expiration equals token dot valid 2, and then user model will equal to grabbed identity. So we'll say new user model. Perfect. Okay. Now, so that's if it was successful with the password. Otherwise, we will never have made it out here. It will just turn, I guess, just return a new login response model with all empty everything. Take this and let's add it to our interface. Okay, so let's hop back over to our account controller. Okay, so we're going to create a new endpoint, and this one will also be a post, but this one will be for login. So I'm just going to copy that, try and make things quicker. Let's see, I think that's all of that. So now let's make sure that we got everything set up with our database. So go ahead and open the package manager tool, and let's run our first migration. So we'll say add migration. Reference design. So we need to add in another NuGet package called this. I'm gonna copy packages, browse, paste, design. Sure it's 3.1.10. I will just rerun that same command. what happens now. Okay, perfect. Worked. It's created all the things that we need. Okay. And if you go to our database and you search for it, we should see the table. So I've got my connection string for the server name. Of It's not here because we have not updated the database yet. So we need that command, date database. I refresh. We see JWT tutorial, which has all the user things that we need. Go ahead and run it. Okay, so that takes us to our weather forecast. Let's see, count slash reference not set to an. Let's change this to return it. Turn that. Inside of our controller, turn model. It's not a so okay, so say slash. Okay, so not found. Good, because we don't have one database. Okay, so let's jump into. I'll open up Postman. You know what? This first time we will put a password in. See what type of response we get. Okay, so we get a 400 with the email field is not a valid email address, as well as password expired. Great. So if we run that, we now only have password. We'll say, okay, and now we get confirm password. The password and confirmation password do not match. Okay, so now we have our requirements for passwords. Passwords must have at least one digit and at least one non-alpha character. So I will put exclamation point. Password 1 exclamation point. 100. The password. Oh yeah, have to both. Save it. Okay, so we have it. Our E and our ID. Okay, so now let's check our login. And in the login, as long as we're successful, we should retrieve JWT token. So let's do login. Remember for the login, we only need the password and email. Send that. User model, the expiration time, and we have our token. Okay, so this is where we can lock it down. So let's go ahead and stop this. Let's say for our user and ID, let's say we want to lock that down so that only someone with a valid token ID can make a call to this endpoint. So do that. Just say and that authorization. Now try and make a call to this endpoint. We have our user ID here. So I'm going to create a new one. Yes. Okay, so we get a 401 unauthorized. And that's because we have authorize. However, can make a call to this endpoint as long as we have the token. Now, remember we set the token to expire in a given amount of time. 2 minutes. I don't know if it's been 2 minutes yet, but we'll try it out. So I'm going to copy that and then here, authorization, say bear token, and put that in there, send it. And we got 200 OK, got the information back. Alright, so this is how you lock down your API endpoints using JWT. It's a great way to require your users to log in with credentials only one time, be able to make API calls on their behalf without having to store their credentials or require them to enter them each time. Well, that's everything on JWT that I have. I hope this series was helpful. Hope you learned something. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and subscribe. If there's anything else you'd like to see, please feel free to comment or send me messages asking for certain material, and I would be happy to try and fit it into my future videos. Thanks.